Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadi Tamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And we will share the screen here. Share. Okay, look at that. That's got a bit high there, huh? 1 second. There, a little better in the screen. May 3rd. And our Mercian devotees are busy today with the first Sunday of the month Homa, so less of them than usual. And as we have been doing, Yoga Sutras is first, but still in chapter 2. Starting with a brief reminder of where we stopped. Stopped on verse 29. So we'll repeat verse 29 here. Give us continuity. The 8 limbs, Ashtanga, the 8 limbs are restraints, observances, postures, breath control. Withdrawal of the senses, concentration, meditation, and meditative absorption. That last one means samadhi. And commentary. Patanjali begins a series of sutras describing the limbs of yoga. Because of its 8-fold nature, classical yoga is also known as Ashtanga yoga. Literally 8-limbed yoga, and then we have Gurudeva. Ashtanga yoga, also called Raja yoga, has 8 successive steps, each one dependent upon the one that precedes it. So that's always worth emphasizing. These are progressive steps, like going through the first grade, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. It's progressive, so we're not supposed to skip any. These 8 successive steps are Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. So that's our review. Basically, all we've done is list the 8 limbs. Complete list of 8. He hasn't described any of them yet. That's what comes up next. Verse 30. Non-injury, truthfulness, non-stealing, celibacy, and non-possessiveness are the restraints. So we need to remember, everybody else has 10 yamas and 10 niyamas, but for some reason Patanjali chose to have 5 of each. Oh, he's different. But he packs the meaning of all 10 into the 5. It's just kind of hidden. So those are the yamas. Commentary. The yamas are the ethical restraints which control the instinctive mind and provide a necessary foundation for the other 7 limbs. Without their practice, no sustainable spiritual progress can be made. For example, if every week husband and wife have a major argument, get upset for a few days, they are still trying to learn the yamas. So you can't really progress beyond them until Instinctive mind is pretty well controlled. You don't have to be perfectly controlled, but pretty well controlled. While the others are self-explanatory, it is useful to note that aparigraha, greedlessness, is more broadly defined as non-attachment to possessions, not clinging to things. Similarly, brahmacharya, celibacy, is strict for the renunciate yogi, but for the householder is understood to be sexual purity or fidelity, not engaging even in thought sexually with anyone but one's spouse. Though Patanjali lists 5 yamas and 5 niyamas in his work, other sacred texts, such as Sandhya Upanishad, Tirumandram list 10, as I mentioned, and Gurudeva. Religion teaches us how to become better people, how to live as spiritual beings on this earth. This happens through living virtuously, following the natural and essential guidelines of Dharma. For Hindus, these guidelines are recorded in the Yamas and Niyamas, ancient scriptural injunctions for all aspects of human thought, attitude, and behavior. In Indian spiritual life, these Vedic restraints and observances are built into the character of children from a very early age. For adults who have been subjected to opposite behavioral patterns, these guidelines may seem to be like commandments. However, even they can, with great dedication and effort, remold their character and create the foundation necessary for a sustained spiritual life. Through following the yamas and niyamas, we cultivate our refined spiritual being while keeping the instinctive nature in check. We lift ourselves into the consciousness of the higher chakras of love, compassion, intelligence, and bliss, and naturally invoke the blessings of the divine devas and mahadevas. Verse 31. These constitute the great vow, Mahavrata, and are universally valid, irrespective of one's class, place, time, or circumstance. So they apply to everyone all the time. No exemptions. It is not uncommon when discussing spiritual ideas to be followed to provide some exceptions to the rules. Here, Patanjali takes a stand, decreeing that with regard to the yamas, there are for the yogi no exceptions. As the great vow, they must be followed in all cases, in all circumstances. However, commentators discuss societal exceptions in special cases, one being the allowance of the fisherman to catch fish, or another for a soldier to fight the enemy. And Gurudeva. Not all of Earth's 1 billion Hindus are living in a perfect state of ahimsa all of the time. Sometimes conditions at hand may force a situation, a regrettable exception, where violence or killing seems to be necessary. Hindus, like other human beings, unfortunately do kill people. In self-defense or in order to protect the family or his village, the Hindu may have to hurt an intruder. Even then, he would harbor no hatred in his heart. Hindus should never instigate an intrusion or instigate a death, nor seek revenge, nor plot retaliation for injuries received. They have the courts of justice, punishment for crimes, and agencies for defending against the aggressor or the intruder. Before any personal use of force, so to speak, all other avenues of persuasion and intelligence would be looked into, as Hindus believe that intelligence is their best weapon. In following Dharma, the only rigid rule is wisdom. My Satguru Siva Yogaswami said, "It is a sin to kill the tiger in the jungle, but if he comes into the village, it may become your duty, if you can't handle it any other way." A devout Hindu would give warnings to scare the tiger or would try to capture the tiger without injury. Probably it would be the most unreligious person in the village who would come forward to kill the tiger. So that's a good example of an incredible exception. Verse 32. Purity, contentment, austerity, self-study, and devotion to God are the observances. So remember, Patanjali has Ishvara Pranidhana, devotion to God, and in our list it's Ishvara Pujana, worship of God, very close. But for some reason he chose to emphasize the devotion rather than the worship. Yoga's second limb is comprised of the religious observances, which encompass the fundamental spiritual practices. As with the Yamas, Patanjali only lists 5, while various other sacred texts list 10. Once the instinctive mind is harnessed and purified by the consistent practice of the restraints, the mind is malleable and open to the deeper practices noted here. If a seeker attempts to perform tapas or explore the mystical worship of Siva without attending to the restraints, success will all be but impossible. And Gurudeva. Character is the foundation. That's very good. These restraints and practices build character. Character is the foundation for spiritual unfoldment. The fact is, the higher we go, the lower we can fall. The top chakras spin fast. The lowest one available to us spins even faster. The platform of character must be built within our lifestyle to maintain the total contentment needed to persevere on the path. These great rishis saw the frailty of human nature and gave these guidelines or disciplines to make it strong. They said, strive. Let's strive to not hurt others, to be truthful and honor all the rest of the virtues they outlined. Verse 33. When troubled by thoughts, cultivate their opposites. It is natural on the Shiva spiritual path for negative thoughts to arise now and then, thoughts which are in opposition to the Yamas and Niyamas, thoughts of hurtfulness, lust, deceit, theft, and more. Patanjali offers a yogic way to neutralize these thoughts and bring them into alignment with the spiritual life. He advises that the seeker consciously ponder the opposite thought. So when ideas of hatred arise, fill the mind with affection, and so on. And Gurudeva, after you have practiced meditation for some time, your inner vision will become keen and clear. For a while, there may be the feeling of arrival, that you have at last conquered life cycles, that you are pure now and free at last. But soon, layer by layer, your past will begin to unfold itself to you as your subconscious mind shows you in vivid pictorial form all the vibratory rates you have put into it in this life. As you remain inwardly poised, watching the images of life, but remaining detached, they gradually fade away, leaving awareness free to dive ever deeper into superconscious realms. Sometimes intense experience brings you into renewed desire to live the kind of life that does not produce distorted images. You become religious and consciously shape up your lifestyle according to the Yamas and Niyamas, so that the reverberation of each action is positive in the subconscious. You have seen the uncomplimentary results of living according to the moods and emotions of the instinctive mind and the senses, and that experience has taught a great lesson. Verse 34. Thoughts such as violence, whether acted upon, caused, or permitted, triggered by slight, moderate, or intense greed, anger, or delusion, find unending fruition in suffering and ignorance. Therefore, cultivate the opposite. And commentary. While the previous sutra was a concise and straightforward insight on negative thoughts, this one is more detailed, describing the types and sources of negative thoughts, their varying intensities, and the extensive negative consequences they entail. Here Patanjali reinforces the practice of cultivating opposite positive thoughts as a remedy. And Gurudeva. It is the baser emotions, when stimulated, that bring awareness from inner depths into the thought strata of the mind, thus strengthening human emotions and feelings with powers of reason and memory. Therefore, for those not too deeply engaged in the external emotional traps, certain sadhanas can be performed to regulate and control these instinctive drives. When they are less impulsive and forceful, one has a sense of being able to control one's thoughts. Later on, as the sadhana persists, the sense that awareness travels in and among these thoughts is felt. And still later, the perceptions occur of hovering above thought, looking out upon the thought stratum of the mind, or a portion of it. So greater and greater detachment from our thoughts is what Gurudeva is saying. Verse 35. In the presence of one established in non-injury, hostility is abandoned. Commentary. When a yogi is firmly ensconced in non-injury in thought, word, and deed, his presence can affect the consciousness of others. More particularly, a person accustomed to feelings of hatred, enmity, and hostility will find his harsh emotions quelled, mollified in the presence of a pure soul. It is said that even animals are so affected, calmed and domesticated in the proximity of a serene yogi. And Gurudeva. Satguru Darshana opens psychic seals in the devotee by moving his awareness out of an area that he does not want to be in. Similarly, a blowtorch changes the consistency of metal. The Satguru is like the sun. He is just there, radiating this very pure energy like the sun evaporates water. Satguru's power of darshana releases the meditator's individual awareness from the thinking area of mind and stabilizes him in the heart chakra, and he begins to awaken and unfold his divinity. So that's what we're trying for, stability in the heart chakra. Verse 36. When one is established in truthfulness, his actions assuredly bear fruit. Patanjali declares that truthfulness practiced perfectly by the yogi endows his actions with success and fulfillment. Some commentators suggest that the yogi's pure truth-telling naturally, inevitably builds trust in his words. Support of his words elicit inspiration, a kind of universal backing of his actions, which then easily manifest in positive results. And Gurudeva. Satya is a restraint, and as one of the 10 restraints, it ranks in importance as number 2. When we restrain our tendencies to deceive, to lie, and break promises, our external life is uncomplicated, as is our subconscious mind. Honesty is the foundation of truth. It is ecologically, psychologically purifying. However, many people are not truthful with themselves, to themselves, let alone to others. And the calculated subconscious built-in program of these clever, cunning, two-faced individuals keeps them in the inner worlds of darkness. To emerge from those worlds, the practice of truthfulness, satya, is in itself a healing and purifying sadhana. Verse 37. When one is established in non-stealing, all treasures draw near. The sage continues to unravel the powers of the Yamas, declaring that the true yogi's abdication of all forms of stealing, subtle and gross, has a corresponding impact on his life. Good things, jewels, whether literal or not, are drawn to him. Good people are attracted to him and his work. Wealth flows toward him, for he can be trusted to manage it selflessly, and so on. And Gurudeva. Of course, stealing must never, ever happen. Even a penny, a peso, a rupee, a lira, or a yen should not be misappropriated or stolen. Defaulting on debts is also a form of stealing. But avoiding debt in principle does not mean that one cannot buy things on credit or through other contractual agreements. It does mean that payments must be made at the expected time. The credit be given in trust and be eliminated when the time has expired. The contracts be honored to the satisfaction of all parties concerned. Running one's affairs on other people's money must be restrained. To control this is the sadhana of asteya. Brahmacharis and sannyasins, of course, must scrupulously obey these restraints relating to debt, stealing, and covetousness. These are certainly not in their code of living. And verse 38, when established in celibacy, one obtains great vitality. Sex's unmistakable powers being the force that perpetuates life in all species. When that power is controlled, transmuted, instead of dissipated in physical and mental expression, the force of it is internalized. The yogi harnesses the life force, and instead of dissipating it, he redirects it within. This energy, being contained, brings strength and vitality that is visible. Yogis are known for their radiance, vigor, creativity, and energy. And Gurudeva, love, including sex, is one of the legitimate four goals of life, according to our religion. Sex is not bad. Its place, however, is properly within the confines of a sanctified marriage. Nor are sex drives unnatural. The goal of the brahmachari and brahmacharini is not to become fearful of sex, but to understand sex and the sexual impulses in a balanced way. During the time of brahmacharya, the goal is to control the sex urges and transmute those vital energies into the brain to gain a great mental and spiritual strength. Yes, his vital life force must be focused on studies and spiritual pursuits. The spiritual value of celibacy has long been understood in the Hindu tradition. Most religions also provide a tradition of monastic life, in which young men take lifetime vows of celibacy. Many of our greatest spiritual lights were celibate throughout their entire life, including Yogaswami, Shankara, and Swami Vivekananda. Others, such as Buddha, Gandhi, and Aurobindo, became celibate after a period of marriage. For the individual preparing for monastic life, brahmacharya is essential in harnessing and transmuting the powerful sexual energies into spiritual and religious concerns. Verse 39. When non-possessiveness is steadfast, knowledge of the how and why of births is revealed. Commentary. By restraining attachments, greediness, and the urge to possess things, one is sufficiently detached to see into births, past, present, and future. Specifically, the causal mechanism of a birth is known, along with the reasons for it, meaning its purpose in the evolution of the soul. And Gurudeva. Dharma is to the individual what its normal development is to a seed. The orderly fulfillment of an inherent nature and destiny. That's a beautiful definition from Gurudeva. I'll read it again. is defining Dharma. The orderly fulfillment of an inherent nature and destiny, not just a nature, but also a destiny. Dharma means merit, morality, good conduct, religious duty, and the way of life of the wise person. When people fulfill their Dharma, they fulfill the very purpose of their life. And when they act against their Dharma, they create new karmas. Just as we are born in a physical body with a certain outward appearance, our Dharma is a certain accumulated pattern. We are expected to live through this Dharma during a lifetime, understanding that all persons can be in their rightful place, doing the rightful Dharma at the right time. The Hindu has this understanding, it's inbred. It offers a certain contentment in knowing that there is a rightful place for each soul in this vast universe. I think part of that relates to the strong belief in reincarnation. I know some people who maybe they have a weak belief in reincarnation or not one at all, and they're trying to do everything in one life, and that's very frustrating. You can't do everything and be everything in one life. It takes many lives to go through all the dharmas. So to be content with the dharma you have, to do it well, requires a belief in reincarnation, a strong one. And that's the end of Yoga Sutras for today. Pass to Shiva. Who are the Devas? How would you answer that question? Gurudeva wrote, religion is the bringing together of the three worlds. This means that the ascended masters, angels, devas, deities, saints, sages of each of the world's religion, living without physical bodies in the inner worlds, guide and govern, help and protect, shower forth blessings and inspiration to the members of their religious family. So it's like in our physical world we have nations, so there's a nationalism. Lots of things we do is just for our nation. So this is saying all these inner beings, they work with their religion's members, not with just everybody. As a Saiva, you are part of a larger, wonderful global family with members in all three worlds. Important point. The Devas are beings of light, souls living in the higher level of the second world, Antarloka, who assist God and the gods. One of their duties is to help answer the prayers of devotees. Another is to receive newcomers to the inner world, those who have died, helping them adjust to their new life without a physical body. Each Hindu has special guardian devas. They are assigned shortly after birth at the name-giving ceremony, or later in life when one enters the great tribe known as the Hindu religion. Some devas are attached to individuals and families for many generations. So that's a very strong family, which with our diaspora emphasis, we're not all living in the village in India anymore. We're all over the world. I think there are less of those. Each family has numerous guardian devas who bless the home and keep the spiritual vibration strong. Some are drawn from nearby temples, attracted by the pujas performed in the home shrine. Still others are from far-off temples who return with the family after the yearly pilgrimage to help in many ways. If the family neglect their sadhana and pujas, however, the home loses its spiritual power and the devas begin to slowly drift away. So we don't want to neglect our sadhana and pujas. The devas guard us and the home silently and are seldom seen, though their presence in our lives is quite obvious in the form of good happenings and harmony. Then we get questions at Hindu.org. This is from 2014 retreat for the Hindu Students Association of Texas. What is Hinduism's view on heaven and earth? Heaven and hell. How would you answer that question? Relates more than I realized to the Shiva and the Devas. So the Hindu view of heaven and hell. It's different than the Western view. Important way. So, 3 worlds, 3 loka. 1, Bhuloka, earth world, the physical plane. 2, Antarloka, inner or in-between world, the subtle or astral plane. Shivaloka, world of Shiva and the gods and highly evolved souls, the causal plane, also called Karanaloka. The 3-world cosmology is readily found in Hindu scriptures. For example, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Now there are verily 3 worlds, the world of men, the world of the fathers, and the world of the gods. Okay, then we have Naraka, abode of darkness, literally pertaining to man, the netherworlds, equivalent to the Western term hell, a gross region of the Antarloka. Naraka is a congested, distressful area where demonic beings and young souls may sojourn until they resolve the darksome karmas they have created. Here beings suffer the consequences of their own misdeeds in previous lives. Naraka is understood as having 7 regions called Tala, corresponding to the states of consciousness of the 7 lower chakras. They are described as places of torment, pain, darkness, confusion, and disease. The next phrase is the important one. But these are only temporary abodes for the evolving soul. Hinduism has no eternal hell. So that's the important point. No eternal hell in Hinduism, as there are in Western religions. And a story from Texas. Father explained that his son, about 10 years old, was approached at school by a Christian boy who told the man's son he was going to hell because he didn't believe in Jesus. Imagine that, Christian evangelists proselytizing in school for 10-year-olds. It's pretty aggressive. The father was rightly upset that this was going on at school. It shouldn't. Part of the problem was that the Hindu boy didn't know how to respond. So if you're aware of children facing this kind of influence, they need to know how to respond. They need an answer that's appropriate for their age level. What they say at 10 years old should be different than what they say at 15. 15, it should be more sophisticated. This is 10-year-old. I suggested the simple idea that in Hinduism, everyone goes to heaven. The idea being which religion is better, one in which many people go to hell or everyone ends up in heaven. So clearly Hinduism is a better choice, right? Because eventually everyone ends up in heaven in Hinduism, where they don't in Western religions. Good answer for a 10-year-old. In other words, the experience of hell in Hinduism is temporary. The soul will leave hell and be reborn on earth, and if his or her conduct is good enough, end up in heaven between the next set of lives on earth. Thank you very much. Oh.